There we are. Hey, you're wearing yellow.
You wearing yellow? What's going on?
I don't know.
What is going on?
Something yellow about today? Tell me.
Well, it's a lot of sun. Trust me, it's so hot here in London. I mean, we're having this heat wave. It's a heat dome over France. Of course, it's the French. It's always a French fault. Sorry.
Ouch.
Pardon, mes amours français. No, I'm kidding. My French friends, I'm kidding. And they have like 112, so 47 degrees. We're at a little bit less than 100, so 37, something like that. My God, it's hot, man. And you know, Europe doesn't do air conditioning, so I might die before the end of this podcast. But this is not the reason I'm in yellow. I'm not emitting the sun. It's because it's Brazil.
That's right. Yeah.
Brazil. That's right. This is what you hinted at the end of the last episode. You said we had discussed it, doing a special episode about Brazil, which are flights that we've done long time in the past. We'll get there. But it's also the month of the World Cup. Happy World Cup.
Absolutely. The world's on fire. Sorry. That didn't come out right. The spirit of the countries of the world are on fire.
It's amazing. I love it. Last night, so we're recording this today on June 25th, 2026. Last night, Brazil played and beat Scotland. Poor Scottish. This is why I put some blue as well. So, you know, I respect my friends from Scotland as well. But, you know, they lost 3-0. I don't know if it's apocryphal. In 1982, during that World Cup, there was also a game between Scotland and Brazil. Brazil won 4-1, but before the game started, you know, when they do the coin flip at the start, I think the referee said to may the best team win. And the Scottish guy replied, I effing hope not. Well, they still lost. Because, yes, Brazil is the best team. Guys, for those who do not care about football, soccer, as you know, every 2 years, every 4 years is the World Cup, every other 4 years is the Euro. And I love watching both. So usually there's a bit of football going there, but we'll be talking a lot about aviation in Brazil. But because it's a World Cup and because yesterday was another game, I'm sorry, my dear friend, because Switzerland beat Canada 2-1.
That was a good game.
It was really hard to decipher which team was which because we have the same colors.
And the fans all look the same.
Right. And, you know, you could argue that we have lakes, we have mountains, in both countries, we speak a little French. And we both have a big neighbor that is a bit loud.
Fair. That's a great point.
It's similar, very, 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 very similar countries. But you were there. You were at the game.
I'm there.
How?
My role of work has brought me into this world. So I've been at every game in Vancouver.
That's
so cool. In general, I'm handling all the V and VVIP arrivals into the stadium. So bit of logistics, a bit of
So you're handling yourself because you're welcoming your own. You're the VVIP.
Yes,
so
of course.
Yeah, right. Yeah,
yeah.
That's so
it is.
Cool.
You mentioned the heat, and you know it's also not as hot, but it's hot summer over here. You know, all the volunteers, they get all the nice uniform and whatnot. I have to stand out in a suit in the sun, tie and everything. Yeah, it's great times.
What? You have to wear it? Oh my
and it's a navy suit, not like a nice summer linen suit.
Look, I will say, FIFA and UEFA, they're very conservative in their ways. Everybody wears suits, no matter. They have also usually a little pin or lapel. This is not me. I could never work at these companies. I want to be in short and t-shirt, man, especially when it's that hot. And again, I'm in short and t-shirt today here, and I don't even going to survive the length of this episode. We'll see. So good luck to me because
you got to survive.
Just want to tell you both good luck. We're all counting on you.
And now before we get to Brazil and a little bit more World Cup, I want to thank you. Remember, as in the last episode at Helsinki, which, by the way, for some reason has been one of the most successful in terms of how many people have listened in a while. I don't know if it's because we introduced video, and again, you don't have to watch video on Apple Podcast. I don't know if it's because people love to hear about the new seat at Helsinki. I don't know why, but it was very successful. So thank you, everyone. And I said during that episode, that I had these. You remember these licorice sweets that I was missing? Yeah. So Frank Loza, he's taller than me. You've heard me talking about. Never met the guy, but lovely bloke. We exchange a lot, and him and his wife, ta-da! They actually sent me through the post a block of 16, 14, 12. I don't know how many. It was back. He says, Paul, I have a parcel. Can I send you? And I didn't suspect anything. Like, oh, why? Thank you. That's very kind. And when I opened and I saw a full block of the Sisu, these famous, the real licorice, the Sisu licorice, I was so happy, salty licorice. So, Frank, officially, because I already said thank you, of course, by email, officially on the podcast, thank you to you and your wife or partner. I don't remember what you said on the email. Pardon me, because I think she went on the mission. She says, no. Paul said he wants them. We're gonna find them. I think they were in Helsinki or something. So they went to a few stores to find me all those, and I've been eating them quite a lot, which is another good luck, because I don't know if you know, and if anybody does this, if you eat too much licorice, you could have something that resembles a heart attack.
Really?
Yeah, I'm not kidding. Happened to a friend of mine. She's a she loves licorice. And one day she had heart palpitations. She was really feeling not good. She went to the emergency room, to the hospital. And at first they thought, oh, maybe she has having an incident with a heart incident or something. No, she had eaten licorice. I think what's the name of the FDA? Is it in the US? Whatever, the National Health
Food Drug Administration type of thing.
I don't know, one of which gives health advice. I think they say you shouldn't eat more than 50 grams of licorice per day, because to avoid these type of events, like cardiac events. Since I've been eating a lot of those, I've been trying to, discipline myself. Another reason I may die in this podcast. If I'm having a heart issue, no, I'm kidding, guys. Of course, I've been very careful because I need to make those last until I come back to Helsinki. So let's play the music and let's go to the actual real content of this show. So Brazil, Rio, Iguazu, Embraer. So what is, you've been before me, so I don't know a lot about what Vinod is going to talk about today, because we don't do that. We don't exchange a lot of notes before. I just want a few notes, and then, because I want it to be live and I want to have surprises, and he wants to have surprises of listening each other's stories. But I know that you've been to Brazil before, because my first time to Brazil was in 2011, and I think your first time was 04 or 05?
Very, very first time was 04. That's right. Yeah.
04. Yeah. So you've been before me. We've both been before the World Cup, because they had the World Cup in 2014. They had the Olympics in 2016. Did you work at these Olympics already, or was it before?
I did.
Aha! So you will probably talk about that, but that's going to be probably near the end of this show, because it's going to be one of your latter experiences. I think you haven't been for a while as well, right? You haven't been for...
No, you actually... Wow, time flies. That would have been the last run.
Yeah, so 10 years. Yeah. For me, slightly longer, because I think my last time was in 2014, so 12 years. So you've been more than me. I don't know if it's more than me, because I haven't counted. I've been quite a few, but you've been more extended years. But the story we'll get later, because I want to do a small introduction. But maybe the foundational question is, before you went to Brazil, what was Brazil for you? Was it a place you absolutely wanted to visit one day? Was it something special? I don't know.
It was something special, because during my university times, we had a lot of international exchange students that I was sort of always with. And anytime there was a Brazilian, it was always fun. It was always fun. It was like, whether it be just hanging out, chit-chatting, or like going for parties, the Brazilian parties, it was top of the list. So for me, the wilds of Brazil and the people of Brazil were always like this fun, great place to be, fueled with anything that you would stereotypically know, all the sightseeing stuff, but also the Amazon and this massive country. So yeah, there was always an allure about Brazil. So, at the first opportunity to go, there was no question it had to happen.
I will say, before I get on, I will say that you've been also as a tourist. I've exclusively been for work, which is why my experiences are less interesting, because I kept going back to the same airports eventually, right? Where you have a more breadth of experience about all the airports you've visited there. But I'll start, as I said, with the introduction. To me, growing up, Brazil was first a football team and then it became a country. Because as a kid growing up in the 80s, we didn't have, of course, and I know I'm talking like an old person, we didn't have like Instagram and 25 billion TV channels. So there was very little, in travel in general, here I'm not specifically talking about Brazil. The other places we knew about the world were through some books, maybe some pictures, and maybe some movies. And that was pretty much it. And Nat Geo, probably, the magazine, that was
the
something
encyclopedia.
That was, yeah, exactly, right? So there was the appeal of Brazil for me, again, was the football, because my dad, he liked football, but he loved the Brazilian team. He was talking about this. Of course, we're talking about a time, me being born in the 70s, where Brazil had already won 3 times. So the World Cup, meaning he had seen them. My father actually went to the World Cup in Switzerland in 1954. He had seen them in these heroes where Pelé, Garrincha, and all these players. So for me, as a kid growing up, Brazil was kind of these. One thing you see every 4 years, you see this crazy team, like they were playing so crazily. And it was like, and of course, because my father influenced me, I also loved them as well. So they were a football team before they became a country, a destination, or a place. I'll go somewhere. And we watch with my father the World Cup every 4 years digitally, because it's why I don't really follow football otherwise, or soccer, if you call it in the US. I don't really follow otherwise, but the World Cup for me is almost a religious event. I will watch every single game I can watch. Again, this year is a bit tougher because of the time difference. I mean, you're able to see them in person, although in a suit. I don't want to wake up at 2 a.m. to see some of the games. My father was even like, again, he was not a big football fan, but he was a doctor on the field for a team in Geneva that went to the, what was it called, Intertoto Cup a few times. So really, he liked it, and he gave me that bug, but I never actually played, I was a basketball guy. But anyway, so they say, and trust me, guys, I'm going to go back to, back to flights. They say that the World Cup you prefer is usually the one that you've seen when you're about 10, 11, 12 years old, because you're just old enough to actually enjoy it fully, but you're not old enough to start to be cynical and seeing what it actually is, right? So for me, it's 1986, it's Mexico. I've seen, of course, Brazil, The Hand of God by Maradona, trading the cards for the Panini books and trying to get Zico, Socrates, Careca. Socrates. I was so impressed by that player. But what about the country itself? The country itself, for me, kind of opened up because of movies. There's 2 I'm going to use as a thread to talk about aviation, and there's one that most of you might not have heard about because it's a French movie, and it's called L'Homme de Rio, That Man from Rio. It's from 1964. It's one of these swashbuckling, epic adventure movie with a lot of comedic tone. Spielberg himself said that it was one of his influences for Indiana Jones, Raiders of the Lost Ark, the first one. So it's really that kind of like moving around. And the thing is, because it's in the title, That Man from Rio, it happened, most of the movie is in Rio. And it's a story with Amazon statuettes. You can see that there's a lot of link with Raiders of the Lost Ark, actually, when you see it. It's not a copy, I'm saying. But the cool thing for people that love aviation, and I know there are clips on YouTube, so you don't need to try to find the movie itself. You can see the movie, some clips on YouTube. There are scenes in airports and in planes. And the first one, it's not Brazil, but it has importance for me. The first one, so the story goes very quickly. His fiancée is abducted, and she's being dragged on to go to Brazil. It follows the people who are abducting his fiancée, and they end up, imagine that, in 1964 at Orly. Have you ever been to Orly, to that other airport in Paris?
I can't try to imagine in 1964.
I'll send you the clip. But the cool thing is you see him running in the main hall. And it's basically, if you go to the main hall of nowadays called Terminal 4, it was Orly Sud back in the day, it's exactly the same. And then he goes and he sees this small ticketing booth, and you're like, we don't do those anymore. They're so small, and the customs is also kind of tiny, and there's not a lot of people. And then they basically go, yes. And, and the women, because there's only women, the women at the desk, they all have their hats and the uniform, and then they almost immediately run to the gate, which is basically a door, and they walk on the apron, and they board that aircraft. And that aircraft is a DC-8-33 by Panair do Brasil. I don't know if you've ever heard about this company.
No.
Panair do Brasil, so it's a DC-8, so it's already a jet engine. Panair do Brasil was a very important company for Brazil in the, let's say, a bit earlier, but their heyday were the 50s and the 60s, until 65, where they were shut down by the military government in Brazil. Everybody who thinks about the beauty of long-haul travel, intercontinental travel, as we used to call it back in the day, back before our days, basically, because we're also too young for that, everybody associates the intercontinental travel with Pan Am.
That's right.
Pan Am this is why we all love the logo, we love all the souvenirs we can get from that era of travel. Panair do Brasil was similarly known, and it was even called Panair Standard. The excellence of their customer service and onboard service was so well known that the Panair Standard was a thing. It was like this. If you know that you're going to have the best quality of service if you were to fly Panair. And I'm guessing this movie, I didn't research it. I don't know, but in this movie, it feels like it was an ad, because you can see, and this is cool for people like us, because not only he boards the plane with stairs, so the DC-8, and by the way, he's rejected from the front stairs because he has a green ticket, which means he's in economy, not in first class or whatever they call it. And then you have shots of the DC-8 of Panair do Brasil actually taking off from Orly, but over the Atlantic and landing in Rio. You have like shots over Rio, the famous, Pano de Sugar, Pano de Sugar. I forgot the name now. Yeah, have it. My Portuguese will come back over these 2 hours. I'll have some Portuguese coming back to me. Yeah, the
Sugarloaf,
that little mountain that is, Sugarloaf. Yes. And it's really, these are beautiful shots for anyone who likes aviation. Just these time watching the movie is important. And they have also shots which tells you how much it probably was an ad, or at least like a collab, like they would say nowadays. They have shots inside, so you see how economy is. And yeah, the seats were actually a bit bigger, man. You see the interior, you see, how the bins were open back in the day. Yeah. You see this famous thing that a lot of people do mistakes. You see that there was Douglas DC, so Douglas, the manufacturer, had created these things where next to your headrest, there you could press the button to call the attendant and have the reading light instead of them being on the top.
Here. Okay.
Yeah, so exactly, which is weird, right? It's a little bit on the side, but it looks like from the shots when you look at the movie, it looks like they have like speakers next to them. They're like the way they were thinking about the future now feels old, but for them felt like the absolute future. So and you can even glimpse a little bit the first class. I don't know if it was first class or business class, but the front bit, and you have the seats are a bit larger. Nothing flat, nothing like that, right? But it's really nice to see this. I think they were called Palomar seat. I don't know how long they stayed for, but these are interesting seats. Anyway, and then so they sorry, because I wanted to say Panair. I wanted to say something about Panair because before I move on, Panair, because it's important. Again, as you can see, I do a little bit of history of the Brazil market. Panair was so important. They were the ones they were of course going to Paris. They were going to London. They were the first one, and that's the thing. They were the first ever airline to land at Heathrow. Panair.
Really?
So see,
the first Brazilian airline, or just the first airline?
No, the first ever airline. That's what I read. I haven't checked lately, but I remember because I had a little Panair bag. You know all these bags that we see people had in the 60s?
Yeah, tote clutch thing.
Exactly. So similarly then, nowadays you can find these replica of Pan Am. I had one with Panair. I don't know where it is. So I probably lost it in one of my moving left and right. And back in the day when I had that, we're talking like 10 years ago, I had checked, and I seem to remember that they were the first airline to ever land at Heathrow. Commercially, they might have done testing, of course, before, right? And they were going to Madrid, Rome, Zurich, Frankfurt. They were even going to Frankfurt. That'd be crazy. They had agreements with TAP, so they were going to Lisbon as well, because they were like, there was no code share or anything, but they were like some kind of they call these flights the friendship flights.
Right.
So I guess there was some co-chair,
allowed
some
to land and
alignment
allowed
here.
to do different things.
Yeah,
right?
I guess. Yeah, because Lisbon to this day, obviously, it seems obvious when I say it, but to this day, Portugal and from Europe, Lisbon is the major. I think the 40%, 50% of the flights going to Brazil from Europe are from Lisbon, and then I think the second is Paris, actually, for 12, 13%. Paris, for some reason. Paris and Air France always had like a bigger relationship with Brazil. I mean, there's cultural and historical reason. Back in the day, a lot of people in Brazil, the aristocracy, loved spending their time in Paris, had this cultural inkling to think that Paris was the thing or some, I don't know. So I guess there's something there. Anyway, in the movie, they land at Gig. That's one of the first airport that I'm talking about. It's not the first airport that we ever see. Was it the first airport you ever landed at? Which was the first airport you ever landed at when you went to Brazil? Do you remember?
It would have been Sao Paulo, Guarulhos.
Yeah, same. Back in the 60s, it wasn't there.
It would have just been a jungle or a field.
It's interesting because the capital of Brazil in 1960 went from Rio to Brasilia, which was newly built, and I'll come to that in a second, actually. But the spotlight basically for all international travel was Rio, and they had two airports: SDU, Santos Dumont, and Galeão. So GIG, with Galeão International, which was built to basically accommodate a bit bigger traffic because SDU, Santos Dumont, is a bit more landlocked, so they had no room. And you see in the movie, back to L'Homme de Rio, that man from Rio, they land, again, ad from Panair, they land at Galeão, and you see, I mean, it's, again, completely silly because the guy goes out of the aircraft and, of course, like, steals a tractor and like escapes the police and get like, climbs over the terminal, ends up in the bar of the terminal, pretends he's just having a drink to avoid the police, and then of course escapes. I love that kind of movie. It's silly, but it's amazing.
It's so absurd that it's just great entertainment.
Exactly. But the amazing thing is that building, it was indeed the terminal, and you can still see it. It's opposite the current buildings. Under there's a road, a passway, so a big road, if you want, that is. When you arrive at Galeão, which basically gets you to the city or back to the airport, there's this small building, which is, you can see that there's barriers in front of it because it is now a military building. Okay. So you cannot access it. But that original terminal still exists. And again, in the movie, you can see how tiny it was and how cute all this was and how, why don't we live in that era where you can go to the airports and everything is everybody dresses nicely and can have like a proper drink and basically you enter the flight and no we have to go through security and TSA and all these things nowadays.
We have to line up
and if you and if you love like we do aircraft on the ground there, still in the movie, you can see the Constellation, the Lockheed L149, so with the Panair again livery. So it's really, again, this is the reason I wanted to talk about the movie, not that you have to watch a movie, but because you have this reminiscing. That tells you how important in the 60s Rio was from an aviation standpoint. Panair, to close the story on them, because I'm not going to mention them again, because obviously we didn't fly them because they were dead. They were forced to shut down, like I said, in 1965 by the military government in Brazil. It was a huge shock. That story went on to the 2010s. People active in the airline trying to get compensation until like 10 years or 15 years ago. So it was really like a shock to the country that such a good airline was to be shut down. And I think all their DC-8s that they have went to Varig, which became basically the only airline of the country. And I think you've flown Varig. You'll tell us later, but you have, right?
Yeah.
Yes. I said it many times in this podcast. I have a memory that as a kid, I have boarded a Varig flight, but I don't know when and how, because I know I've never been to Brazil when I was a kid. So it must have been like a co-chair or something, but I know I've entered, and I need to go to my brother's place. He has all these family albums, because in the family albums are some boarding passes, and maybe one of them will tell me, maybe, because maybe not, if I've ever flown. Yeah, Varig, because I mean, I'll ask you later about that. So, I wanted to say, still in the story of Brazil, I'm mixing the movie and the story of Brazil here. I said Galileo was opened to cater for international traffic, but it's a bit far from the city to Rio compared to Santos Dumont, which is very close to the city. So when it opened Galileo opened in 52, 53. When they opened, basically they forced airlines to land there. Like all international, they had to land there. They said, no, jet engines have to land in Galileo and not in Santos Dumont. So they made it an airport. They made it a big airport. And SDU, Santo, was reduced to basically the shuttle between Rio and Sao Paulo. Yep. I think they were with turboprops, right? So they propped up this airport as being the gateway, and I think the military government back then, they called it the gateway to Brazil. They wanted everyone to arrive to that airport and then move on. What else? Yeah, so I was saying, watching the movie was something that as a kid made me suddenly, Brazil is more than a football team, and I can see Copacabana, and I can see all, the Aterro de Flamengo, all these places. I'm like, my God, I want to see that, I was a young kid. I didn't, of course, guys, I said the movie's from 1964. I saw it probably early 80s, right? That's the first movie that made me think like this. And to finish about that movie before I move on to a second movie, and don't worry, there's only going to be 2 movies in my story. The second one you'll know. There's a fascinating thing in that movie in L'Homme de Rio, that man from Rio, is part of the movie happens in Brasilia. And Brasilia is still under construction. So you see an empty city. Like some of the government buildings, the famous Oscar Niemeyer designed buildings are ready. The rest of the city is not. And they use, of course, that as a prop for the movie. They go into empty buildings and everything. But that is absolutely insane to see Brasilia, which I've never seen, sadly, in real life, but to see a city, because it's a planned city of the city, to see a city completely empty. And if you like, I think that movie sparked in me the love of this kind of brutalist architecture, because I've seen that it feels completely amazing to see like these huge buildings. The rest is empty and there's not a single person. And so for that bit as well, besides aviation, I think that movie is really cool. And it sparked in me the wish to go to Brazil. The second movie I learned about Brazil, and I think I saw it similar years, right? Even though it's a later movie from the first one. Before I say which one, I say I started by saying, and you agreed with me, that a lot of our generation learned about other places through movies and Nat Geo and books and encyclopedias. For me, the movies that for me made probably the biggest impact in discovering new places for people that had no chance, because back in the day it was hard to travel, was the James Bond franchise.
Yes.
The first time I saw Japan was You Only Live Twice. The first time maybe people saw Switzerland was Goldfinger or Honor Majesty's Secret Service. I think these movies, nowadays people think about the lore of James Bond, about being gadgets.
All the tech.
Of course,
right?
because it was fun. Right, the tech. But I think that the actual lore, and when I was talking about movies like that, like James Bond with my dad, was the travel, were these places you had never seen. And so you see this guy, which is, of course, like a spy, and it's an amazing person as a guy you like, I want to be James Bond. And you see him in all these places that were completely remote and unattainable for most of us. Nowadays, I'm not saying you can travel anywhere, but it's probably much easier. And James Bond can go in many, many places. And you're like, yeah, I've seen it on Instagram the other day, that same building he's in right now. You know what I mean? There's less of the attraction. I think James Bond was, and for Brazil, the James Bond is Moonraker.
Right.
So I know it's a divisive one, because some people think it's silly because they go to space.
with the love story that goes to space.
Right, exactly. It was a bit of the reaction to Star Wars. So they said, I think the movie that was supposed to be was A Spy Who Loved Me was supposed to be the next one. I don't remember. No, I'm mixing my James Bond. Doesn't matter. But anyway, the point is, it was not supposed to be that one. Star Wars comes out, big success, space. They say, okay, we need to send James Bond to space. So they do Moonraker. But there's again, and you can find clips. Most people will be aware of that movie. I hope you've seen it. But there's again Brazil, not only Brazil itself, but there's again in Rio and other places. But there's again a lot of aviation. You see Jaws.
Yes.
Jaws. You know that.
Yes.
Yeah. I think it's 7 foot.
I think like one of his
something.
teeth is like a foot. The way they film it and angle it, like, right?
Yeah, exactly. And so I couldn't, because then I looked at it yesterday. I couldn't find info. There's a scene with Jaws is passing security at what probably is Heathrow. Is it actually filmed at Heathrow? It's really hard to say, because it could be low ceilings, could be Terminal 3. I don't know, but it's still a very funny scene, because first he's so tall that the low ceilings for him, like he's basically touching them. And when he passes the metal detector, of course, goes beep, and you see the security guy is like half his size, and he just smiles. Right. And he's like, okay, go on.
Shows his grill.
The reason I say it could be Heathrow is because you hear on that scene, there's no conversation, there's no dialogue in this very short scene, but you hear the PA says BA 128 to Rio de Janeiro. I don't know if it's a real number, if it was ever a BA 128, but if it's BA, it probably is Heathrow. So if anyone knows if that part of it, and I'm not sure we have the kind of audience that will know that kind of nitty-gritty detail about filming locations, but if anyone knows if that bit was filmed at Heathrow, because I've heard the other rumor is that it was actually filmed at Galeão. Because they had access to Galeão, the airport in Rio, they said, we're going to pretend it's, Heathrow. Yeah. And they made, I don't know if that's true, because of course I didn't go there. So I should have said, Moonraker is 1979, the movie was. So of course I was 4 years old, guys, so there's no way I know how Galeão looked like back in 1979. So if anyone remembers and or knows where that bit was filmed, would be fine. And I hope, by the way, at 7'2", that was like 2 meters and 15, 2 meters and 18 centimeters. It must be. I hope he had like a bulkhead. Or emergency exit.
Or first class.
For some reason, I doubt. Yeah, well, I don't know if Drax, the nemesis, I don't know if he was paying for first class to his henchmen. And then we see, and that's very beautiful. We see James Bond, so Roger Moore, lands at Galeão, and because he lands, of course, when the carnival is happening. But that scene, do you remember in what aircraft he lands with?
I'm going to default to a 707, but I don't actually remember.
No. 1979. Think out the movie. It's a bit.
No, drawing a blank.
And James Bond. What aircraft would he fly to?
Concorde.
Commercial.
Of course.
Concorde. He lands with the Concorde of Air France. So first of all, even James Bond agrees with me that Air France is better than BA, right? Let's put it out. Here we go. That's a joke, guys. But he lands on the Concorde. Of course. Why? As I said earlier, Air France, France has always had a special relationship with Brazil. So there's more connectivity from Charles de Gaulle than from Heathrow. That's the case to this day. And so BA was not flying to Rio at all with the Concorde, whereas, of course, Air France did. Not only they did, it was their first ever, not in the movie here, in reality, their first ever Concorde revenue flight was Paris, Dakar, Rio, where I think the same day British Airways did London to Bahrain. So, meaning again the importance of Rio, of Brazil, because when they chose where should we fly first, they didn't go to New York, they didn't go to South Africa. They decided to go to Rio. So this is I think the first flight. So I think that aircraft, that Concorde, we should have I have our Concorde specialist here, Ed Parsons, should be here to help me. But I think the first Concorde by Air France was 75, I would say, and maybe the first revenue flight was 76, which is the one I mentioned, the one to Rio. Anyway, this is Moonraker. Here is in 79. Interestingly, that Concorde, you should rewatch if you don't remember,
rewatch it.
already has a new livery.
Okay.
The kind of more Euro white, let's say, probably Euro white Air France livery, which looks on that aircraft looks absolutely amazing. It's just like absolutely amazing. And I think Air France had Rio flights until 82. So why do I say that? Because that in the history of Brazil, in 1979, even though it's much later than the film I mentioned earlier, the center of power had already moved to Sao Paulo. So Sao Paulo became the default economic center of Brazil, because once the government officials, all the state stuff left Rio to Brasilia, well, suddenly Rio lost a little bit of its shine and a little bit of its importance. And Sao Paulo was more the entrepreneurial, private,
right.
Where people were making stuff. Rio was more where the officials would be. And so, but even though that I said that already had happened throughout the 70s, I think 1979, 80 is when Galeão was at its height, because it was the only big airport in Brazil. So you had, even though you wanted, if you wanted to go to, let's say, Sao Paulo,
you had to go into
Europe.
Galeão.
Exactly. Galeão first, then take a flight to the Guarulhos. Which one? GRU? The other one. What's his name? I forgot the name of it.
The one in the dangerous one in the city.
Exactly, because that was the only one. And they didn't. It was already at capacity, I think, at the beginning of the 80s. So it's an interesting look, because you see, of course, James Bond lands in a Concorde, and of course he goes down with the stairs, and there's there's of course a Rolls Royce waiting for him, because why not? I mean, I wish I was welcome. Why am I not welcome like that every time I go to Brazil? And then you can see him going downtown, and it's beautiful. And to me, again, as a kid, this is when I was like, I want to go to Rio. I want to see that city. That city became the thing. I know they go to the, where do they go in the movie? The waterfalls, Iguazu
Falls, yeah.
I'm pretty Iguazu Falls. I'm pretty sure there's a scene there as well. There is actually, in the same movie, there's a scene of at LAX. For our friends who are listening, I looked at the stats the other day. There's a new type of stat I can watch which cities in the US, and I think LA. We have a lot of listeners in LA. So LAX, you're in that movie. Briefly, Roger Moore takes a helicopter from LAX. You can see how it was before, before the huge thing that it is today. And actually, I think which Diamonds Are Forever. Older James Bond movie, I think early 70s. You can see Sean Connery leaving a Lufthansa, I would say, what would it be? 707? No.
I'm trying to remember. Yeah.
A Lufthansa flight.
Yeah, I remember
with
the
yellow belly thing.
And then the deep navy striping and everything. Yeah.
Yeah. So anyway, that you can see a lot of stuff happens. Back to Brazil. So, yeah, so it's... And in the movie, last one, because I had a few notes, I'm looking at them randomly. There's also a scene at Santos Dumont in Moonraker, and you see, there's a plane which is probably a Lockheed. You see the plane is saying Drax Industries. I forgot what it says exactly on the livery, which is the name of
the bad
guy. That scene, of course, first of all, there's no such thing as Drax Industries. I've read that it was Varig that lent the aircraft to the producers of James Bond. That's at Santos Dumont. That is SDU Airport. So you can see both airport in James Bond as well. So coming back to outside of James Bond and movies, as said, the center of gravity switches to Sao Paulo. Sao Paulo only has Congonhas, as you said, and the other one, VCP, Viracopos. Have you ever been to that one?
No. There was a possibility to go, but I never actually made it. Yeah.
So apparently this one is super far.
Yeah. I'm trying to think, what's that one that's outside of the Paris, the Ryanair one?
God,
That's
similar.
Yeah, it shouldn't even have the name
Similar,
of the city
super far.
attached, really.
Yeah.
But it does.
Yes, the low-cost airlines in Europe are famous to do that. Yeah, to create
like Prestwick.
So Galileo at that point stays, as I said, the entry to Brazil. If you were flying a 74-100, a 74-200, you had to fly to Galileo, and there was also, of course, a question of runway. And that's when they built, and you see that in the James Bond in Moonraker, they built the bigger terminal, not the small that I mentioned from the first movie, the bigger terminal that you might have used, Terminal 1, which is closed now. After the Olympics, it closed. So, but for when we went, it was there. That was the terminal. That's when they opened. And the government was really trying to, all of you go there, and we're also pushing Varig. That was the big thing. That was the front door of the country. Interestingly, and I'm soon over, and I'll start asking you questions about your trip. So interestingly, the same military government is also the one that set up Embraer. Embraer was set in that era. I don't remember the year. I should have checked. I'm stupid now. But that's where, and they started right away with both a military and a civil aviation program. And their first, they were based in Sao Paulo, which actually tells you how the center of gravity had actually moved. And I think their first, Embraer's first ever customer, first flight was a defunct airline from Brazil called Trans Brazil. They had like multicolor flight. I believe, not sure, when James Bond lands with that Concorde, you can see
Trans Brazil in the back. Is it Trans Brazil or Trans Aero?
Sure.
Maybe it's something like
I don't know, because look, I think, because what I know is that Trans Brazil's liveries were very colorful. They were using a lot of colors. And when you see that Concorde landing, that plane that is waiting seems to be a Trans Brazil. So I don't know if it's a but I think it could be. But I'm not entirely sure that it is, right? I think probably is a 727, 727, I would say. But so I looked at the movie the other night to remember some of this stuff, because of course I don't have everything all that from memory. But I don't know. Maybe you have actual true James Bond specialists listening, and they'll be able to tell that everything I'm saying is wrong. Another piece of trivia about Embraer. I mean, we both love Embraer. I say that. I'm assuming you also like Embraer. I think the aircraft they do, right? We've mostly done ERJs and E-jets. We don't know what happened before because we're probably too young. But have you maybe, I make a wrong assumption. Have you ever flown earlier aircraft from Embraer?
No, just the small CityJet stuff. And then,
same CityJet, yeah. One of their first, I don't know, again, I shouldn't, if you want the actual story of Embraer, just look it up, ask AI. I don't know, but I know that one of their first civil aircraft, the EMB 100 something, don't quote me, of course, I'm not sure, but I'm sure about that, the trivia. It was, I think, 15 or 20 seats. You know, an airline in Europe that is very famous that started with that aircraft?
With 15 or 20 seats? No.
Just shot in the dark. What do you think? You should have been mid-80s. Think of an airline. You might not know. I'm not giving you enough hints. It's a low-cost airline. 85. A low-cost airline that started with one single Embraer aircraft with 15 to 20 seats, and now is a behemoth. Now I've given you another clue. I'm wearing the colors of that airline.
Yes. Mr. O'Leary.
It's pretty amazing when you think about it.
No, he started with just one single plane.
Yeah, it was not even theirs. They leased a single Embraer, and I don't know how many seats. I think it was 20 seats, but I might be wrong. And that was the first aircraft. And look at them now. See. Embraer has had it's still of course has an importance in history, but they've also been there. So it's and in James Bond you see the Sugarloaf, that famous. You've done the cable car in
where they're fighting on the top and falling off.
Yes.
And the jaws come out.
And Jaws is actually trying to you rupture the cable with his teeth, and it's just, as a kid, it was
fascinating.
Just amazing. Right. This is what I said. I mean, I don't know if it was better. It's not about that. And of course, back in the day, it feels like very nostalgic. But for us, our generation, this is how we discovered these places. Mm-hmm. Unless you were lucky to have a family that was traveling a lot, it was like, holy cow, there's a cable car and Jaws is there. I'm like, I want to see these, right? So it's and you see again Copacabana and Avenida Atlantica and all these places. And the only place that you don't see is Leblon. Leblon is one of my favorite area of Rio. And I said, I should have taken Roger Moore to have a drink there when he was still around.
The beauty about the James Bond, you mentioned it, how you see places, and it all happens in that, let's say, average 2-hour film period. You're going to touch so many places in the world, and because it shrinks the journey of travel down. You can be in LA, on a Concorde, in theoretically London, and next thing you know in Rio, all at once, right? Yeah. Whereas now when you watch, something like the Bourne series, that it's
or Mission Impossible
to journey that far is just okay. Well, you already know
exactly. It's not. Yes. Yes, that's exactly what I was trying to say earlier, that besides the gadgets, for me, the most important thing about James Bond, probably until the mid-90s, until the rise of low cost and maybe the more ease to travel, was travel. The places you would never see otherwise, right? And it was all glam, and you were like, I want to see all of this in real life, So it's it's absolutely, for me, James Bond for that has been an amazing teacher of places I wish to see one day.
And he arrives into these places and is like at the time, very stereotypical scene. So he goes into Rio, next thing you know, in Carnival, because Carnival's every day, right?
Right there.
All the time, there. Out of the Rolls Royce into Carnival. It doesn't matter the time.
I appreciate because it's rare. I appreciate the fact that we see the Concorde landing, that we see, of course, it's a joke. We see Jaws during security because there's no need. You just assume that the guy is flying some jet and you don't see. So the fact that some of these movies, and I think Sean Connery was a 707 when he lands at LAX with that Lufthansa thing. The fact that you see these little bits, for me, is like a kind of a vignette of past airports or past aircraft, and I really appreciate that. But for many people, even seeing let's say a Lufthansa 707 was, you didn't fly back then. Nowadays everybody and their grandmother is flying. Yeah. But back in the day, it was also simply the fact of flying itself, intercontinental more so, was something completely out of bounds for most people. So I think that's why James Bond was so popular. It still is, but now it's more because of the machismo, the plot, the spy stuff, and Anyway, let's go back to aviation. Otherwise, I'll never finish. I have a feeling we could talk about just exactly. And and this is why Rio, as I'm finished with the movies, this is why Rio was so important to me. I really wanted to see Botafogo Bay, all these places, and then to go back to the thread, and because that will lead to us to finish the thread actually. So Gig was at its height of its popularity when that movie came out, 80s. But as I said, it was living aboard time. The center of gravity had already moved to Sao Paulo. The undercurrent of the economy, everything was going too strong to ignore. So in 1985, finally, Sao Paulo opened their Guarulhos, which is GRU, which is the first airport I ever landed at. And you said the same. Long runways, everything set up. And I think overnight is an exaggeration, but nearly overnight, everybody left Galeo and everybody moved to Guarulhos. Sorry, these names still have them. So that's why Guarulhos became and since then has been the biggest airport in, not only in Brazil, actually, I think it's the biggest airport in South America.
Yeah.
I think 50 million people these days. I don't know back then, but I mean it's the busiest. The other one, and we'll talk about them, guys, because we'll talk about our own experience. As I said, Guarulhos is probably 50 million. The CGH, so the other is at 25 million probably. And then you have Brasilia. The airport is probably 15 million people. VCP, I mentioned the very far Sao Paulo airport is at 13 million, and that's where Azul is mostly based, actually, which is why it actually works. And in Rio, the two airports, that's interesting because we haven't been lately since I'm overshooting. But what happened is that after the Olympics, so during the Olympics, during the World Cup, and during the era that you went and I went, there was a resurgence of Rio. There was also an oil boom, so Rio was very important. It was not as important as it's not here to say one is better than the other, but there was a resurgence not only of tourism, but a lot of because of an oil boom of business there. So suddenly, both Santo Dumont and Galeão kind of surged, but especially Santo Dumont. The problem with Santo Dumont is so restricted that what they decided is basically they made it a law to force. I mean, sorry, I wanted to say in order. Galeão was about to basically be abandoned. There was no one flying there, so they didn't want that to happen. So they forced airlines to land at Galeão. So they said now Santo Dumont has a passenger cap. I think at some point it was at 12, 13 million. They capped it at 6 or 6.5 million passengers a year to kind of force the airlines to use the other. And actually it worked. And now basically if you fly to Rio for holidays, you'll end up at Galeão. Now, because I've talked for like nearly 50 minutes nonstop, it's going to be Vino's. So you said your first airport. So which one? I know some stories you want to talk about. So I don't know if you want to do them in
order or not. Yeah, it's
in order, like a chronological order, or you just want to say the craziest first. You take as you wish.
I mean, just to segue off what you're saying, the aura of Rio, Galeões. I think that Brazil is one of those places that would put an airline on the map. Whether it be Air France, using that as a direct, but even all the others, the Lufthansas, and anyone else, if you could say, we also fly to Brazil, to Rio. Oof. I mean, you look at all those vintage airline posters, guaranteed there's going to be one that's like all about the fact that they've made it to Brazil.
Yeah, and I think Rio was a very sophisticated city. In the 50s, in the 60s, it was, kind of like a Paris, if you want. Some people will say that Buenos Aires was that as well. And again, here the point is not to compare and to create fights.
Yeah, I mean, there's other beautiful cities, but
like if you had like a luxury store, you could say, I mean, New York, London, Tokyo, Rio. These are the places that are. Exactly. Maybe you can swap Hong Kong for Tokyo and Hong Kong. But I mean, they were like the presence, the prestige of the presence in Latin America would be more often than not Rio. Yeah. Rio as this imagery for travel and aviation fans.
Yeah. I mean, when I first started flying to Brazil, 2003. That's a long time ago. Varig, in Brazilian Portuguese, you'd say Varig, and VASP were the two.
VASP. Oh yeah, VASP.
I think Alex mentioned this.
Did you ever fly those guys?
Oh, I did.
Oh.
I mean, at this time, Varig was like, it was the thing. It was the flag carrying. They had every aircraft imaginable, like wide body, narrow body.
Yeah, it was a huge. They didn't have real competition. VASP, let's go. How do you want to call it? Should I call it VASP? VASP?
Yeah.
VASP. Okay, VASP. VASP was their competition, but in terms of intercontinental, everything you would see.
VASP had some DC-10s.
VASP shut down in 2005, so that's where you probably flew them. Varig a year later, 2006, and I think most of Varig was acquired by Gol, which is an airline that still exists today, and then they switched the brand. So sorry,
Yeah, no,
go on.
I mean, VASP had DC-10s. I remember.
Yes, I know.
So yeah, my first, I think it was Air Canada into Guarulhos, and the excuse to go to Brazil, which was finally what made me go, was there was a friend having a wedding. I'm like, oh, that's perfect reason to
nice.
just go, and it wasn't Carnival time. That's going to come later. But it was like, we talked about what's that sensation, what's that stigma, what does anyone think when they fly into a country, and Brazil was one of those. I've never been here before, I don't know what to expect. I have my Lonely Planet in my bag that I've read a bunch of stuff and seen pictures, but
100%.
It's fascinating. It's amazing. And in the early 2000s, the airports were still, they were there, they're old, but they weren't extremely modern at that point. There was still a lot of analog, and I loved it. There was a lot of concrete, there was a lot of signs, like everything was still very manual. It was great.
Yeah.
You step off that bridge and just that humid, I don't know, the smell of the country just hits you, and you're like, I'm somewhere different. I'm James Bond. Oh no, there's no Rolls Royce for me. And it was even the passport control and hearing the different sounds, the language. At that point, as a Canadian, we still had to get a visa to go to Brazil. And I remember where you actually had to send the passport to the embassy and hope that it comes back, with a lot of money being exchanged to do all these services. I remember the visa I had, it was obviously early 2000. It was computerized, but it was computer printed. Whoever at the embassy, I don't know, wasn't paying attention. The typeset of it printing on the template of the visa was a little bit off. It wasn't quite on point.
Are you that OCD?
Well, this comes back later on a subsequent trip. So let's just remember. So I had this visa, and it was just great. They just the sound of the chop, the old chop, like the bang.
Yes.
It was great. So I landed and connected onto a VASP flight into Santos Dumont, into Rio, because the wedding was going to be outside of Rio. Guarulhos to SDU.
Guarulhos directly taking the Ponte Aéreos, the shuttle to Santos Dumont.
But it was a VASP flight. And it was a 737-200. It was a bucket in the sky. Like the livery was, it was not quite American Airlines all stainless steel. It was just stainless steel because there was nothing else.
Well, a year and a half later, they would shut down.
Yeah.
They were they were in dire straits already.
Yeah.
But you landed at Santos Dumont. Man, which side of the aircraft were you?
I would have been on aircraft right. I had a window seat. I had the wing. I had the thrust reverser action on the 37. And I knew that this was an interesting landing place, but I didn't realize how interesting until I got in.
Exactly.
It was middle of the day, so it wasn't at night. So I had full reference of everything, and it was fantastic. It was amazing.
I've only landed once, and also I'll check because I have the notes later. But I was in a group, and I was so talking with the other that when I went to take my ticket, I didn't check the seat I was at, and I was not on the left side. Guys, if you ever, usually that's how landing can be different, but you have this view of Rio that is incredible, but you have to be on the left side. And of course, I'm on the right side talking with other people, and suddenly I see my friends, oh, look, and I'm from the other side trying to, oh man, I cannot see. And I'm so pissed off. Which is why I know I need to go back just to do that landing. And this time properly, not just chatting with my friends and not realizing that, oh man, I'm missing one of the best landings in the world. Anyway, sorry, I interrupted your story.
Yeah,
go on. So that 737, so that was kind of...
And all I just remember is you come in kind of like a Kitex scenario where you do this drop of a descent, this rapid descent to get down. Yeah.
Amazing.
And slam onto that runway and thunder it in. It's amazing. as soon as the wing kind of opens up, you just see all the maintenance, like the grease flying everywhere and everything's black. You're like, wow. I'm really on an airplane. It's great. Yeah.
I love this feeling has disappeared a bit with more modern aircrafts, isn't it?
It has.
Everything is smoother.
Yeah. We're going to jump around. So that's not the only time I've landed into Santos Dumont. When I was there in 2016, post Olympics, did a trip with my wife, and we had to split because I had to come back into Rio to kind of collect my things and pick up on that ticket for what will be another interesting flight. So I did another Guarulhos to Santos Dumont on Azul, on a very nice Embraer, standard 192, and it was a night flight in, and I had aircraft left, and it was just gorgeous to see the night view of Rio coming in. And there was no
don't stop, right? stop turning the knife into my heart. I've not seen this properly. Oh, go on.
But Advance, that is 13 years later? Yeah, 13 years later on an Embraer, and the rapid descent is not as dramatic, and it's quiet, and it's just smooth sailing, and you land and some thrust reverse and you're there. It's all good.
Yeah, but you still have the views. But yeah, it's true. The this kind of feeling, almost like organic, that you had with other aircraft when you had difficult approaches, it is less there nowadays. It's like, and it's not a bad thing. I mean, people want comfort and people want to be. I get it. It's just I have like not for Brazil, but in general, the flights I do remember the more vividly are the ones where this feeling was there, like when you could feel you were part of the aircraft, basically.
That's right. So flipping now back to, that first trip, when I finished my wedding and all things Rio, I flew out of Santos Dumont on that one again. And I believe I flew to Iguazu Falls. I can't remember if I connected through Sao Paulo or if it may have been probably it was a direct, but it would have been on Varig. And it was such a contrast, after being on VASP and multicolored seats, you're not knowing what aircraft is this. You step onto Varig, you're like, the national carrier, everything's like navy with a flare of yellow and everything's in order. And it was a incredible takeoff experience out of Santos Dumont because it's full thrust, hold the brakes, let it go, and just hit it. And
the runway is short.
Yeah. And you have to climb and just avoid the Sugarloaf Mountain, like no big deal. But for an aviation person, it's like an amusement park ride.
What you see is breathtaking from Santos Dumont. Whereas Galeão, I mean, some of the stuff is nice. I've done it so many times. But the other one at Rio, but if you want the experience of landing or departing at Rio, please, the love of God, fly to and from SDU. It's just amazing.
Yeah, it's great. Iguazu Falls Airport is a small airport, and you're literally landing in the jungle. It's fantastic, right?
That's what I've been told.
Yeah. And the only funny thing I remember is the arrival experience. It's a domestic flight. And I was backpacking at the time. So no like calling an Uber or taking a high-speed train anywhere. You take a local bus. So I remember just getting on like the Brazilian local bus that it has a turnstile at the front, which I think...
Yeah. I've done those in Brazil.
Yeah. Again, I didn't speak Portuguese. And I mean, I knew how much, for some reason, I knew how much I had to pay. Maybe I had that in advance. But I didn't know that you pay and then you go through the turnstile with your bag. So I'm trying to take the bag off and then I'm trying to go through the turnstile and then the bag falls and then the money. It was a complete gong show. And I'm sure all the locals are laughing at me. It's like, well, who is this fool and what is he doing? Yeah, it was a memory. Brazil has a lot of first and last aircrafts for me. I mean, the 737-200. Actually, I'm trying to think. I'm going to have to think back if that may have been my last 37-200. But another one that, it's come up. It wasn't my last at the time, but it is in the last few runs of it. Flying out of Foz do Iguaçu probably went back to Sao Paulo, friends and whatnot. The 757.
Well, you say one of your last, and it was 2005. You haven't flown that.
Well, I did that Costa Rica trip 2 years ago, and that was the last.
You mentioned, yeah.
But at the time, it was, we're realizing, this may be one of the last, right?
Oh, I see.
And it was some god awful early, like 6 a.m. departure. One of these things, sun's barely up, and it's like that small terminal feeling, and everybody's in there, and you're the only flight. The airport agents, you see them come in from their homes, just fresh and perky, ready to start their day shift. Check everybody in. And again, it's like 5 a.m. Everyone's hungry. Everyone's thirsty. You need your coffee. You need sustenance. And it was the most interesting thing is immediately there was meat pies available and a lot of very heavy, savory foods. But I mean, Brazil, meat. You got to do it.
Yeah. Right. Have you ever been, sorry to small parentheses on meat, have you ever been to Argentina?
Yes.
Or only,
Yes.
or not? Because, for me, the myth, I don't know if it's a myth, but, it's always like the best beef in the world is in Argentina. And I've been to Buenos Aires, and yes, it's amongst, if not, very close to top one of the beef I've ever eaten. But then Brazil. And then I think it's tough because it's very, very close. I mean, depends then on your restaurant, the context, whatever. But I've on one trip, I had been both to Buenos Aires and to Brazil, both Argentina and Brazil. And that trip, sorry, but the beef, the both were like, again, top. But I have somehow preferred the one. No one from Argentina were going to listen to us anymore. Guys, I'm not saying it's the case all the time, but I had a friend in Argentina, not in Brazil. So we did that. It was a trip, first Argentina, second Brazil. This is 2011, 2012, whatever, doesn't matter. The point is the meat and not the aircraft I've taken to do that one. And he was vegetarian, right? And from the valley, from San Francisco. And he tells me, I always remember, he tells me, Paul, let's do a steakhouse tonight. And I look at him and say, yeah, but there's going to be nothing. I mean, you're going to eat like some of the sides, whatever. He says, no, Paul, if I have to eat meat once in my life, it's going to be here in Argentina. And he did. And he loved it. And then, so imagine that, then he said, no, it was just a one-time thing. I'm going to go back to being a vegetarian. And then we go to Brazil. And it's we're a group of friends, and he's there, and I'm eating that beef, and I'm looking at him and say, I think it's better than one you had in Argentina. You should consider doing a second exception. Anyway, sorry for the story, but you stuck with me. So anyway, go on. So you were talking about the food at the airport. I guess you didn't have beef when
I did. I mean,
a steak. Yeah, but maybe not a steak at 7 a.m.
No, it was a meat pie thing. It was just, I don't know why I'm even mentioning. It's one of these things that sticks in your memory. When the girl looks at you and says meat pie, I'm like, okay, I don't really have an option.
Kind of like that, to be honest. Sometimes,
it was good. And I remember looking out the window, and there was the Varig again, the heydays of Varig. Beautiful, shining 757 with the navy underbelly and that very orange airport lighting that the older, but this is before the LED times, right? Where you can barely see the tail because it's kind of vanished into the darkness. That the plane hasn't even woken up yet because the crew hasn't even boarded yet, and he's just like sitting there. I'm like, oh, beautiful jet, admiring it. Went into Sao Paulo and then spent time there with friends and whatnot. And then, just like you, went to Buenos Aires. And another,
nice.
And this is definitely the last time I flew on a MD-11. Was on that one.
Wow.
And it was the Varig MD-11. And I mean, it wasn't a full flight. There was nothing terribly memorable about the entire flight experience, but just the fact that I was on an MD-11. And it was a fairly empty flight. And the one thing that always stands out in my mind is, it's almost like having a photo of it. The funny seating configuration. It was like, was it 2, 4, 3? I think. Some
Yes,
bizarre funny
because
thing.
Swiss Air had them, and I'm pretty sure I flew that quite a lot before they went bankrupt, and I'm pretty sure it was 241.
Yeah.
Was it? There was another one that had this
Oddball kind of thing, right?
Oh,
I
that
mean, the
doesn't matter.
L1011 is
Yeah.
252. Yeah.
252.
But this was the
yes.
asymmetric one. I believe it was 243.
Yeah.
And I was in a 2. And just remember popping my head up looking like, it's throwing me for a loop because they're not symmetrical. And yeah, I mean, that's just the power of the tri-jet. And the, you know, it's just the design of the wing. It kind of had like that sort of curve out. None of this flex stuff of Dreamliners and whatnot today, where it goes up. It's like the wing is going to go down and almost fall off, and you see that engine kind of like bouncing along. You're like, oh boy.
None of these flex stuff. Now give me the thing that just doesn't move.
Solid steel.
Yeah, you're right.
Composite.
Yeah. The way we used to do back then, you know.
Wow, we sound old. Yeah, it was great. I mean, going back, it was Air Canada, and to mention Air Canada, which obviously comes up a lot, Air Canada 767-300, because this is before Air Canada even had 777s and all this kind of stuff, and they would run this. So it was like a double stop. It was Toronto, Guarulhos, Buenos Aires, direct. It was a triangle flight. And it's funny, you think of the 767 in terms of size and scope, you're like, oh, there's no way the 767 could ever make it that far. Well, yes, it did. It absolutely did. Because now it's all been replaced by 777 and Dreamliners and A350s and things. So, but the 767 was another piece of history that's sort of there.
I don't think, by the way, on Flighty you can sort your. Can you sort your flight history by aircraft? By aircraft.
You can't sort, but I think if you touch the aircraft type, it'll tell you all the things you've done.
All the others. Yeah, but if you say, I don't know. Yeah, it just popped out in my mind. I haven't looked at it yet because I was trying to, like, we keep saying, when was the last time I flew I mean, of course, it's only the flights we've been able to input in our Flighty. And some of the stuff is older and I'm not entirely sure, but it would be sometimes interesting. Anyway, yeah.
So in the period of years that followed, you know, I was then going back for trips to go enjoy Carnival. Yeah.
Aha! Like James Bond.
Yes.
So you flew with a Concorde of
F1. I had this very great group of friends, and it's funny, you know, we're mentioning the World Cup. This group of friends of mine that lived in Sao Paulo, young, strapping Brazilian, you know, fit, in 2006, which was Germany hosted the World Cup. This group of guys, well, I mean, I only know like 3 of them, but you know, their cohort, let's say 6, 7 of them, they all planned and they went to Germany. They rented a camper van, and drove around to watch all the matches and just partied.
So cool.
And imagine like a bunch of Brazilian guys, young in their mid-20s,
so cool,
partying it up, going to all the games as fans. It was incredible.
That is very, very, very cool.
Yeah, I mean, it's just the geography of, because it was Germany, it was just easy to do that, right? So
yeah, I was about to say, where it's to be like now to go from Mexico City to Vancouver by car, and the next day to go to Houston would be a bit more difficult, I guess.
So the next set I was doing was, I then picked up and flew on Varig. So again. Yes. There's a great de-icing story with an Embraer that leads into this, but maybe I should save this. Otherwise we're going to be...
Yeah, we're never going to be able to finish.
Let's footnote that is how I ended up making it onto a Varig flight out of JFK. And again, Varig, you know, JFK to Sao Paulo, 777, fantastic, right?
Nice.
So I go into a lot of Sao Paulo going on, and I had to fly out.
Always Guarulhos.
Yeah, into Guarulhos, yeah. And then I had to get a domestic from Congonhas up to Salvador.
Salvador, the city, not El Salvador, the country. Yeah, so it's SSA, I think. SSA is the airport code, I'm pretty sure. Yeah.
So I went in and I had to take the transfer bus from Guarulhos to Congonhas. Might as well have driven across the country of how long this silly thing took. You come out, it's curbside, you just get on this bus, and the geography around Guarulhos is nothing special. I mean, it's just field and freeways, but slowly you're coming into the city and the bus has to get slower and slower and slower because you're trying to make your way to Congonhas in the middle. And suddenly you're there, you're curbside, and it's just mayhem curbside because it's such a tiny, busy little airport.
Yeah, I have the same memories, man. Yeah, oh my God, Congonhas.
Yeah,
is...
like you get on at Guarulhos and it's very orderly and it's big curbs and big airport and
yeah, it's a big airport.
Your bags on. You jump off, and it's like, where's this? Is an airport.
And the check-in hall, everything is cramped. I clearly remember of course, could have changed now because we're talking both of us memories of 10, 15 years ago. But the floor was like checkers, like black and white, and there were. The reason I remember that is for some reason that type of floor makes everything even smaller. It doesn't give you that sense of space. It cramps even the kind of the visual chaos that exists into even more cramped visual that you see. And I remember there were so many people, and I was like, "The hell is what am I supposed to do here?" And but I loved it because of that. I think after. The other thing I remember well as well is that once you had passed security, once you arrived near the gates, it was way more civilized, way more, it doesn't become airy suddenly like you have a lot of space, but it's more spacious. I also remember these corridors that had like curved windows. It always felt like since I used to live before going to the first time in Brazil, I used to live in Asia before, it evoked me a lot of these curved airports you have like in Bangkok, etc. These in a smaller scale because again, Congonhas is much smaller. But it's so I love the chaos. And as soon as you pass security, it was like, okay, now I can actually breathe now. And because it's small, it was pretty easy to get to the aircraft. Then everything was
easy, there's
only
a handful of gates. There's not that many gates, right?
Yeah.
So I then flew. Nothing remarkable. I'm assuming it was Varig. Yes, or it might have been Tam.
Maybe.
Anyway, it was one of them.
Mm-hmm.
Into Salvador, the Bahia. Yeah, small airport, nothing that I could remember, and fairly easy to get in. But the return, so the plan was then to go finish, I did Carnival with this great group of friends, partied on the streets, did the whole thing. My liver, I don't know what happened to the liver. It got eaten by the jaws of alcohol.
It's still there. It's still in Brazil. Yeah.
But what was interesting is, speaking of party, the final night, I got completely off the chair, like done. So I think our flights were at, I'll just say 10 a.m. So I was on, my friends were on TAM. I was on Varig. And we were going back to Sao Paulo to then enjoy and continue, and the rest of the trip goes on from there. But I was on my own on this one flight. But the timings were very similar, like within half an hour of each other. I said, it's fine. We're just going to meet up on the Guarulhos side. So this time it was SSA into Guarulhos. It's, I don't know, 7 a.m. and they're waking me up because I am dead. Past, like, the alcohol is still in the system, like sick kind of thing. Like, buddy, we got to pack. We go to the airport. It's time. I'm like, no, I get. They're like, get yourself together. I'm like, okay. I pull myself together, and it's at the point where I'm like, I better carry like a bowl or a bucket or something because this is not going well.
God.
So,
oh God.
So I think we took a van. And I remember one of the friends, his brother, studying to be a physician at the time, he gives me an apple and he says, take micro bites of this apple. It'll make you survive. I'm like, what does a random give me an apple to eat when I'm like pretty much drunk / hungover? It worked. I don't know. Micro bites. I got to the airport. Fine. So I think my flight was half an hour later. We got to her quite early. I'm at the desk. I said, is there a flight that's earlier that I can align a little bit more with my friends on the TAM flight. They said, well, the one that's pretty much at the exact same time is full, but said, if you can make it to the gate in 15 minutes, you can go now. I'm like, okay, sure.
Go.
Why not? Let's go. Now remember, the condition that I'm in, like, I was banking on having time to just sit at the gate, peace, chill, try to slowly hydrate, eat this apple. I'm like, sure, fine, let's go. I end up with a middle seat, last row of the plane, barge in, like, tell my friends, I'm going, I'll be there before you. See you later. Like, but are you feeling okay? I'm like, I don't know. Gotta go.
Gotta go. Yeah.
Back end of a 737. Get in there. Fine. I mean, it was not comfortable. And the in-flight meal was hot cheese sandwiches. The smell, and it was probably one of the worst flight experiences of my self-induced, of course, absolutely. Yeah. But I think by the time I had a little Coca-Cola in me to kind of settle everything down, and
that works actually.
Land into
into
Guarulhos on that one. So yeah, it was just funny experiences that come with this sort of manual way of doing things, which is great.
So you've been very, very often to Sao Paulo. The current story.
Yeah.
Not only the airports. Is that where you were connecting most of the time?
Connecting and
yeah, I think now it became. I mean, Guarulhos became the. I think before Guarulhos opened in '85, the only airport that the foreign airlines could land at in Sao Paulo, they couldn't land at Congonhas. They were forced to get to that. The other one, what's his name? VCP or something. The other, which is a bit far away. So basically, it was, and that was also the current base from Azul.
Mm-hmm.
So I think nowadays it's just like you go. It's going to be the busiest airport. But I mean, what I'm trying to say, you could make a case that if you want to go to Iguazu, you want to go just for tourism, you don't need to always land in Sao Paulo.
Yes.
You can avoid it. I'm not saying you should avoid it, because especially for those who are listening who might have never been to Brazil, please go. But it seems that to you, the stories I've heard is that you always would end Sao Paulo, and then from there, in like a star, like go wherever you needed to go. So, yeah.
Now, just reminding me before I do the return home on the side, remember I mentioned about the visa and the offset of the typing on the visa.
Yes.
So when I did the very first trip to Brazil, I thought, okay, this is the one time I'm going to go. Well, then my friends invite me. I'm like, oh, I get to go again. Oh, I need another visa. And it says, did you apply for a multiple entry visa? I'm looking at this visa. I'm like, I can't tell, because it says the word single/multiple. And then the way they print is it's a bunch of X's. So I'm like, are you crossing out that it is single? Therefore, the word multiple means it is multiple? Or are you putting X's on the single to like a check mark to say this is single? I was like, what do I do? So I actually scanned it, sent it to the embassy. I was like, I didn't say I applied. I said, what do I have? They're like, oh, you have a multiple entry. I'm like, really? Okay. So I print that email and keep that with me.
Exactly. Yeah. No, I mean, they told you.
And sure enough, I landed. The guy didn't even blink. He said, chop. Okay, good. Multiple entry. I'm like, score. This is even better. But this visa will keep coming back in subsequent trips.
How long was it valid
5
for?
years.
20 years?
It's a good one. Yeah. Anyway, I finished this.
So
and I'm flying now from Guarulhos to Miami. Again on Varig, 777. So on this one, I had selected a bulkhead aisle economy seat. Now, Varig had acquired their 777s from all over the place. It was quite a mishmash of seating configuration, so you never knew what you were going to get. So this bulkhead aisle was right at next to the galley. It was a very interesting seat. Anyway, I go to check in, and there's this beautiful Brazilian check-in agent. So I just start talking. So, I've been, and I picked up on a bit of, fun Portuguese at the time. So my friend said, tell her she's beautiful. So I told her in Brazilian Portuguese that she's very beautiful and thank you for what she's doing. Because remember, at this time, my job was ground agent in Edmonton at the time. So I said, "Oh, I do the same work as you, da 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 da, and I'm here for Carnival." And then I slipped it in. I'm like, "Are there any upgrades available?" And she's all like turning red, doing her thing, and then she slides a boarding pass back to me, and it's 3A. Oh.
Nice.
Like, okay. I think I must have scored. Maybe they were looking for involuntary upgrades or something, and I had a very
No. Don't undersell it. It's you.
the charm.
Natural charisma. Yes. No. You, if you still have that boarding pass, flip it on the other side. That's our phone number right there.
Yes.
There you go.
I also I had a high commodity economy class seat to barter with, so maybe that helped. So
100%.
So I get on, and it was I believe it was an ex-United aircraft or something.
Mm-hmm.
So, it wasn't pods or anything. It was like maybe a 222 config or something like that. A lot of angle flat. Those are the days of like the big seat cushion type seats. Very comfy and all good. Yeah. And one distinct memory I had is how things sound on the mic. So in this airport setup, the duty free was the type where you had to collect it at the gate off the cart, where you make the purchase. You do it at the store, and then you bring the receipt and all this kind of thing.
I hate this.
Tell me about it.
Well, yeah.
So on board, and then the flight attendant comes on, but because of so what he's trying to say is, if anyone has forgotten their duty free at the gate, please indicate, because we have it. Indicate, otherwise you're not going to get it. But the way that it came through on the mic, nobody could understand, and it sounded something like someone forgot duty free or something. It was completely garbled, and everyone's like, "What does this guy say?" It's going on and on. And another thing I just love about Brazil is all things. Here we go. Microphone. You go to concerts, you go to announcements. It's like they're swallowing the mic. Like the speaker systems or whatever the technology is just like this distortion on the speaker. It's at the airports. It's on the airplanes. It's part of the charm of it. I love it.
Yeah, I agree. My memories of the microphone. I don't know why, but actually I associate it. I went to since we're talking football today, I went to the derby Paulista at Corinthians versus Palmeiras. God, man, it's crazy because it's like the stadium is a bit old, not old in the fact that it looks old. No, but it's been built a long time ago, and it's wonderful. But everything echoes. So when you have fans shouting, and I remember every time they were trying to make an announcement or something, they were trying, of course, to outshout everyone, which led to these type. Everybody was shouting. It was one of the best experiences of football I ever had in my life. It was absolutely. I'm trying to remember the name of the stadium. I don't know. Anyway, it doesn't matter. It's one of the stadiums. It's in Sao Paulo, and it ended by 1-1, and then one penalty shootout, and Corinthians won 6-5. But it was absolutely insane because the noise level. I've been to games in Greece, obviously. Italy is a little bit slightly less noisy. Turkey is also very noisy, but that Brazil, man, God, it was amazing. And the microphone. Trying to outshot, impossible, but still trying, like, it's probably a guy with his car that was not parked in the right position, or something. It was really fun.
I've even been to Brazilian parties in Canada.
I love it.
And it's the same thing. It's
I love
so next trip is another, it was going for Carnival. I went to a U2 concert in Sao Paulo. Yeah, at one of these mega stadiums. It was like 70,000 people. It's incredible. Like one of the most memorable things in open air, and it was fantastic. And I think flying in, nothing to report, but getting home was quite something else. So I purchased a ticket, JFK, Guarulhos, JFK. I think I did a side trip to Porto Alegre, Atlantida. I did like stuff down there. Fine. And again, on the flight side, nothing remarkable. It was 737s, 8 Airbuses, airport, everything just fairly normal. But now coming home. So just to kind of put the puzzle together, I'm supposed to fly Guarulhos to JFK, connect from JFK to, now I had airline passes with America West at the time. America West got swallowed up by American because I was working for the ground handler that did that. So I was supposed to go JFK to Phoenix to Edmonton. That was kind of the route. Standby, keyword standby, not a confirmed ticket, it's a staff ticket. Fine. So I do my trip, all good. I check in at Guarulhos. Everything's fine. I take my time. I have a seat, a decent seat too. Something bulkhead, whatever it was, economy. I'm walking up to the gate at a little bit ahead of normal because there's nothing urgent about going. And it is utter chaos. Absolute pandemonium. I'm like, what's happened? And these people are angry. They're banging their fists on the table and yelling. I'm like, wow. I'm looking at the board. My flight's on time. Everything's okay. I'm really and again, I'm an airport employee. Like, I'm in the industry. I need to know. I can't not know. So I finally talked to someone, and this is 2005, or was it six? It may have been Varig's last year.
Yeah, I was about to say.
So Varig was in such dire straits, they could not afford the landing fees at JFK any longer. So they were starting to cancel. So they took 3 days of flight and put into one. My one was the one that was going to run. So the previous 2 days, passenger groups had been canceled and hoteled and et cetera, and completely displaced, which is why people were annoyed and pissed off. And they were going on about the hotels being terrible and no meal vouchers, and why is the airline treating them? Okay. I'm like, So there's a third. I guess the flights weren't full, or maybe they were able to reroute certain people for whoever they could afford to reroute, whatever travel insurance, but no.
Sure not.
Exactly.
Sorry, but
so I was like, well, okay, there's a lot of pissed off people, but if my flight's going and I have my seat, what do I care? The plane is full. The plane will go. My trip is not disrupted. So sorry for the rest. Okay, fine. And I'm traveling on my own. I don't have a family. Okay. Then the fun and games start. Oh, delayed. Here we go. Gate change. Oh, okay. You already have a bunch of, energy charged people, and you're starting, these things happen. So then again, the announcements, the microphone. I'm trying to listen. I'm like, what has happened? So our original plane went mechanical. Great. I'm like, that's it. I'm now going to be one of these pissed off people. No, they're going to take the inbound from Frankfurt and they're going to cancel wherever that one was going and use it for this, because they probably realized they can't mess with this one anymore. Fine. 2-hour delay because it's now rerouting and aircraft should be cleaned. Fine. I'm like, okay, all of this is fairly normal. This is, flights get delayed. It's all good. And then came the catcher. Oh, it's completely different configuration of seating inside. So all your seats are null and void. Remember, 777-200, I think. They didn't have 300s. We're going to do open seating on this flight.
I was about in my head, I was like, is he gonna say they're gonna have like a huge bowl and then they're gonna
And
shake
randomly-
it and like and they randomly assign numbers? No, it's
Just
open
throw,
seating.
like,
It's gonna be the
these
first one
papers
to
out to people.
Exactly. That's how that would be fun. At least like a airport
Yeah.
activity. Oh dear, open seating is.
Yeah,
I've done once open seating in a wide body. It's quite a mess.
100%. This is not like
You have to be fast.
Yeah.
and you have to know where you want to sit. Right. You don't decide where you're on the aircraft. On the aircraft, you have to be locked on your priority, the seat you want, and then maybe have like a plan B in case if someone has the same lock and he's faster than you. But that's it. You don't enter like, where should I go now? Because by the time you were thinking that,
Exactly.
it's over. There's no more seats. There's only middle
so
seats.
through this whole melee of hour or two, I've made a new friend, a beautiful Brazilian female. Obviously, because she was the one helping me kind of translate and understand. I was telling she was interested in, I knew about airlines, and I was okay. We became quick new friends. So when they said, open seating, I was like, oh man, panicking. Like, what do we do? What do we do? I mean, she's also panicking. I'm like, well, if you want, we can try and like attack this together. Okay, fine. So then they came on and said the order that we're going to do this, and again, think of the microphone and how it all sounds. Like I was ready myself. I was almost about to go up and say, here's my airline ID. I work as a ground agent. Can I help you say this? But I didn't want to be offensive and say, can I say this in proper English? I was almost ready to grab that mic because that's my job. I would have been doing that in those years, but I didn't. And they said, okay, we're going to do pre-boards. And then we're going to do a business class. Fine. I don't know. I guess it may have been open seating. And then the keywords, and I forgot to mention, I had Star Alliance Gold. Then we're going to do Star Alliance Gold. And then I didn't even listen to the rest. I'm like, aha, I'm saved. I have the whole plane to myself. I can pick whatever I want.
Yeah, exactly.
Now my friend is not traveling with me, but like,
well, she wasn't traveling with you, but maybe now she is.
Ticketing wise though, she's got nothing to do with me. So I was like, you know what? Just
but that can be
just
arranged.
come with me. Just let me deal with this.
That's what I mean.
So they call it, and people are just wildfire this way. But you know what? There is an aircraft there. I can see the aircraft. It's there. It's clean. There's a crew. I'm like, we're gonna go. It's all good. So they call it pre-boards for our business class, Star Alliance Go. And I'm holding that gold card with my life. Like, I am gold. And I said, yeah, we're together. And because, the gate agents have no interest in the minutia. They're like, yeah, okay, go. Bing, 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 bing. And walk into pretty much an empty economy class cabin. Yeah.
Cool.
And
So you could choose whatever you wanted.
I don't even know what we picked. We picked something decent. Yeah, it was fine. It was a 333 config, and there was 2-seaters mid. Usually the 2-seaters are at the very, very back. But in this funny setup they had, first economy cabin had a 2-seater at the back of that. So we took that and said, you know what? We're here on our own. We shell off from the poor people. Fine.
Well, we know it.
But it continues. So we fly. The plane actually, we go. And, okay, they were losing money, but it's not like they didn't give us food. They operated the flight as a Varig flight should be. No issues. We landed in JFK. Now, personally, I've missed all my connections to go to Phoenix, to go to Edmonton on my standby and all this kind of thing. So I thought, well, and they said, please come to the desk at blah, blah, blah place after your bags for hotel, meals, and rebooking. I'm like, okay, well, at least I can get the hotel and the meal, if anything. I mean, the flight, I'm a standby staff son. They shouldn't do anything for me, but I'm just going to go to the desk. So my friend lived in New York. I said goodbye, got the number. And then I go. So it was like an outside, first time, I don't know where this would have been. I don't even remember what terminal. An outside desk to deal with displacements.
What do you mean the outside desk? Like outdoors?
It was weird. So you get your bags, you exit into
What?
air, and you go around like this corner, and there's like a service counter, a customer service counter outside. It wasn't curbside, but it was outside. I know.
What?
Because the only reason I remember is because there was the dark of night, and there's a bit of weather and wind and sound. Very strange. It wasn't like a sterile desk inside a thing.
Because I've seen outdoor desks, but usually
Check-in.
that's in weather. Yeah, but even it's like the weather there could
Anything.
be.
I mean, it was covered.
And then
It was, but
yeah,
still.
but still, it could be cold or whatever. You know what I mean? It's like
I'm gonna have to look this one up as to where. I just remember it was outside.
Maybe, as you said, maybe they had no more money as they couldn't pay for anything else. Like, oh, there's a desk there outside. It's going to cost you the least. I mean,
Yeah, maybe. Anyway, I line up, and there's like 40, 50 people. So I patiently wait. I'm like, okay, here we go. And right away, okay, here's meals, hotel. Like, okay, where are you trying to go to? So I just said Edmonton, Canada, right? And your ticket. And all I had was like this printout, a paper printout of it didn't really say staff's time, but if you knew what you were doing, you look at the codes, and I'm expecting to be literally have it spat back. And if anything, maybe say, no hotel, no, you're done, which I would have been, okay, so sorry, my mistake. And I'll walk away and I'll figure out my life. Guy takes it. He's typing in. He finds, there's a JFK to Edmonton tomorrow morning. Oh, okay. So he calls sort of a central desk, books me on it. I'm like, okay, we're progressing here, even though he shouldn't be, but okay, let's continue on. None the wiser. He then has to now validate this ticket. And there's the paper ticket, the FIMS, Flight Interruption Manifest, like the triplicate and the green. It was always green in that sense, because now they're basically handing off to Air Canada. But he's handing nothing off. Maybe I was the one that did the final bankrupt dollar. Because if there was a flight disrupted on anyone, America and a co-chair, you're handing off that fare to whoever's going to rescue it.
Yeah, exactly. That's the
But
whole
I have
point.
no fare.
Exactly.
I'm a standby fare. It's just like a nothing fare. So he does all this thing. I'm like, okay, well, is he going to catch it? Is he going to catch it? And he's like, okay, I just have my supervisor has to sign. I'm like, the supervisor's going to see this immediately. Like, it's coming. I'm waiting for it. Goes, there's one supervisor. She's, octopus. She got 8 arms trying to help all these agents and make decisions and, deal with like fierce customer service. It comes into her. She looks at it like a split second. Yeah, okay. Boom, signs it, hands it back to him. He tears his thing, gives it back to me. Good to go.
You good. Well, there you go.
And I do take it one step further after that, though.
What did you do?
He made one critical error. He did not fill what class of service.
No way. What did you do? What did you do?
Obviously, J is the best letter to put in there.
Well, I would have done the same. Man. Bravo.
But he is booked in economy. So I go to check in. I don't know, online check-in existed. I check in. I went to the lounge. So I said, I noticed I'm in an economy seat, but when they booked it as part of the thing, J, it's like, oh yeah, look at that. Okay, here, 2A or K or whatever. Sure.
Yeah.
Flew straight home. So, one of these things of
amazing
navigating through that. But it was just fascinating, this Varig, and now in hindsight, listening and thinking of the airline that fell.
I think that was clearly the end of it. I don't know the exact date of their downfall, but they have had financial troubles for a while. And if you tell me that flight was in 2006, I mean, that's months away. I mean, maybe 2 days before,
Yeah.
because you're the one actually with your,
My little
your fare
that
thing
was
here
it.
that you were
and
standing
the
by.
hotel and the meals.
That was it. You bankrupted the entire company, man. That's Vinod is officially the one that bankrupted Varig. But yeah, so that wow.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So that was that trip, and then the last time I flew was in to go to work the Olympic Games, and that was a little bit
Did you? Where did? I guess this time you flew
United.
directly to Rio.
Yes, I flew on United to Houston, Houston to GIG and to Caleos. Yeah,
GIG.
and that one was great because I managed to get a last minute upgrade on check-in, I believe, for the Houston to Rio flight, and it was something incredibly cheap. I'm talking like $400 or $500. I don't know. I just struck luck on that one. And it was fantastic. It was 777. This is before any Polaris, any sort of actually, I think I might have had it was one of the first versions of a pod in a United business class. And it was fairly straightforward. Great flight. Night departure, all things, ice cream sundae, this kind of thing. And flew back in premium economy. And, GIG Airport is simple and straightforward. There's nothing terribly unique that I remember about it.
I agree.
It was
I
in
agree.
Olympic
I
mode at the
agree.
time, so everything was channeling and decorated and whatnot. Going back, it's so inconsequential. I don't even remember actually the departure process. The flight wasn't canceled. The plane was there. But one of the last thing I'll say is the lasting memories of back to Sao Paulo to Guarulhos. They have the dual runways, the parallel runways.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
And they have that system where if one's ready for its takeoff roll, it cannot go until the other one has touched down. And it has like this
touchdown. Yes.
harmonious dance of aircraft. Oh, it's wonderful. If you get the right gate side to watch all this, you can just stand there like a child, like looking at it the whole time.
Hopefully, is that what Gatwick will have when they open their second runway? They might have a system like this as well, actually. But I mean, not the same, but I mean, like there will be always movement, but there will be like a dance like this.
Yeah.
So,
yeah.
I've done that flight as well. I think, GIG. I'll start with maybe the first time I ever landed, because I've done a lot of trips like you. We're not going to cover all of them. Like you just cover the ones you remembered or that mattered. I will say the first time, because of all I said, I had to build up in my head, and I could have there was this visit we did, and it was a tour, so we did along with other people, as I hinted at earlier. We did Sao Paulo and Rio on the same trip, and then we went on to Santiago de Chile, and the trip back in 2011, which is my first job, I was living in Cyprus briefly. Between me living in Asia, Paul living in Asia, and Paul living in London, there's a little bit of Cyprus in the middle. And I was still, and I should say, a lot of people when I say that, say, "Oh, you're Cypriot." I'm like, I would be very proud to be Cypriot, but I'm not. I'm Greek. But I wouldn't blame you if you were to tell me that, because when I moved to Cyprus, complete parenthesis, nothing to do with aviation, even the authorities, I don't know, for anyone who's lived in Cyprus, I had the right to live there because as a European, I have the right to live there, but I still had to go to the immigration office to get remember, it was a yellow paper that tells me Paul is here, basically, right? It's just a paper with a stamp. I went there, I says, but you don't need it. What do you mean you don't need it? You're a Cypriot. I'm like, okay, so even the authorities of Cyprus believed that I was a Cypriot for some reason, I wouldn't blame you if you thought that I was a Cypriot. Of course, I'm not, and I still got that paper. I should have asked, being more bold, I should have said, just give me the passport right now. Anyway, so I was in Cyprus briefly, and so I had to go from Cyprus to Sao Paulo, which is a bit of an undertaking. But at that time, When my best status, I was 2011. I was Golden Emirates, and I was Emirates to Rio. I mean, come on, it was nothing. It was not even possible. And I was what's the name? Platinum at with Air France. So I said, I'm going to do like James Bond. I'm going to land for my first time in Brazil with not the Concorde, but with Air France, right? Hopefully a Rolls-Royce would actually wait for me. But I had to first figure out how to get to, first I wanted to figure out a cheap price. Even back then I was like that. But in business class if I could, and I did. And how to get to the departure, like nothing leaves from Cyprus. And I found a very good deal from London, Charles de Gaulle, Sao Paulo. I'm like, well, let's do that. Instead of starting from, you know how it is. If you start from Charles de Gaulle, it would be slightly more expensive. And if I were to start from Heathrow, it would be less expensive because, of course, Air France is trying to get customers to fly like this. And for me, I didn't care because I was coming from Cyprus. I took a flight from Cyprus to London. And I said, because I was not living in London, I'm going to do it as to being able to spend a day in London. So I landed super early at Heathrow. I think the arrival was 8 a.m. Could be a bit later because 8 a.m. and the flight was 5 hours. Maybe not 8 a.m. It was an early thing. And then my flight leaving from Heathrow to Charles de Gaulle was at 9 p.m.
Okay.
So I said, well, I have the whole day. And I booked, it already existed back then, the hotel, just to drop my stuff, just in case, to drop my stuff. And so I had this whole plan, but I don't plan. I just say, I'm going to, take the tube and go to London. Well, that day, I should have been more into my gossip and tabloids because that day was a wedding from William and Kate. Ooh. It was impossible to get to central London. I was like, no way. and actually, people thought that people arriving in London, the staff would tell me, oh, you're here for the wedding? What do you mean I'm here for the wedding? Which wedding? Who exactly? Anyway, so I remember spending the day at Heathrow on an extended layover because I'm like, I'm not going into central London with all this. And I didn't know it was happening. And I remember in the hotel watching a bit of it. And I'm like, what am I doing? Anyway, so it was a bit of a very long day where I had a lot of time to explore Heathrow. Anyway, I arrive at Terminal 4. Which terminal was Air France back in the day? Probably 4. And I had luggage. I was because I was doing this tour, I had to check in luggage, which, as you guys know, I don't do anymore. But I had, and I always remember, I arrived at the check-in counter of Air France at Heathrow, and she says, "Do you have luggage?" Like in a kind of concerned voice. I'm like, "Yeah," and she said, "Oh, okay." And I should have thought about it, but the time I land, to make the story short, from the time I land at Charles de Gaulle to the time I depart from Charles de Gaulle is 45 minutes. And I think clearly the message was like, your luggage is not going to make it. And it didn't, by the way. I'm going to spoil it right there. There was even on the tag, they put
Rush.
It was Rush, like in big letter. But that didn't help. Anyway, let's do that bit. So I flew. It was a 777 to Guarulhos. I was in business class. It was the old seat from Air France. Nothing important to say. It was a beautiful flight, beautiful food. That's the main reason I love flying Air France. Is the food is always absolutely fantastically excellent. And I remember Guarulhos. That's because you said, how do you remember these airports? I remember this airport because it was my first time I was expecting, and it was like a T3 at Heathrow, low ceilings and like, neon lights. I was like, what the hell?
A lot of gray concrete.
It was fine. Exactly. It was fine, by the way. Nothing here to say it was a bad airport, but I was like, okay. Plus, of course, I arrive, wait at the freaking carousel, no luggage. I go to missing luggage and they tell me, well, it's not, come on. And then I was staying only 2 days in Sao Paulo before moving on. I was like, it's never going to come. Spoiler alert, it came at the last very moment. I think they could have actually left it at the airport and I would have just gone pick it up. I know, because it was I was leaving for the other one. Anyway, I also remember Air France gave me a voucher for it was just enough to buy a T-shirt and toothpaste. That was about it. So it was fine. I had my own stuff on me. I remember I bought this white T-shirt in like an airport shop after. It was like, whatever. Anyway, and the luggage arrived, I think, 36 hours later. It was fine. But these low ceilings have this memory. I don't know about you, because you said earlier about arriving the first time for you, there was, I think you mentioned the smell. And I know that you are, because we talked about perfume in the past, so it's something that actually gets you in places.
Yeah.
For me, it's always been colors, the palette of a city, of an airport, the sound and the soundscape. Different sounds you can hear, whether it's an airport or it's in a city. And it's very interesting. I'm going to be very short about this, don't worry, guys. But when I arrived in Sao Paulo, here I'm not talking about the airport, I'm talking about the city. The color palette, the soundscape, the patterns in general, the sign, the road signs, the signs in shops. For me, it was Manila. I was like, this is the same city, and I had lived in Manila. I will not say that it is the same city, but that the visual of sprawling, and contrast when you have like suddenly a lot of luxury, and the next street could be, a community of more impoverished settlements, or the visual chaos in the street. That's also something that is a lot of kinetic energy as well. Traffic obviously,
high-end cars
there was
versus
more
nothings.
Mopeds and like all the deliveries and everything. A lot of diesel back in the day, so lots of noise. Manila would be the same with the jeepneys. And also a lot of bold colors and street art and overhead wires everywhere. So there's nonstop movement. And there was really something. We should say, maybe most importantly, all this within. So there's chaos, there's grit, but at the same time, the people are super warm. They're like infectiously warm, infectiously, nice and welcoming. And that was something I fell in love with Brazil as soon as it landed, man. I really loved that place. And also very proud. And the food is clearly, of course, amazing. We mentioned, and as you said, the very proud of seeing that in that game. I went, oh yeah, what's the name? Pacaembu is the Stadio Municipal, the Paulo Machado, something. I think they call it Pacaembu. I forgot. Guys, look it up. So that's where I went to see the Corinthians, the game. And there as well, I was like almost worried, like, which color should I choose not to get into a fight? But actually, there was no fight. It was really absolutely fantastic. And I kept it off with the drink at the... Have you been to that hotel in the center of Jardim Paulista, the unique with the sky bar at the top, which overviews the entire Sao Paulo?
Yes. Did I? Yes. Yes.
That's an amazing.
Yes.
It still exists.
Yeah.
I know it still exists because, it's probably very touristy and a very obvious thing to say. So it's not here to tell you that you should do that. But for a first time to see the entire city from that view, and also the evening is absolutely
I think I remember going and jaw dropped just with that first drink.
Really,
I didn't spend a lot of time there. I think it was just like a one drink, but...
No, same here. It was more like a drink and seeing how it is, but it was really absolutely wonderful. So flight-wise, so that was my arrival. And actually, you know what? I think it's the only, because it's why I hinted at before I was asking you, did you arrive very often in Sao Paulo? Because it's the only time I've ever been. No, there will be a second time in a minute, but I've not been a lot to GRU. Then I flew a 319 from Concorde, the other airport, the smaller airport, the city airport, like you called it earlier, at Sao Paulo. It was a 319 that was flying TAM. So TAM is what is now LATAM, that's the merger, but I was pre-merger, of course. It was a 319. I remember, like we said, like I said earlier to you, the checkered white and black floor, tons of people. It was like 7 a.m. Probably a lot of people were commuting, because I was going to Rio as well. So it felt a lot of noise and chaos. And I was like, oh, and then as soon as I arrived in the gate, it was actually better. It was interesting. What I wanted to note, it was 319. It was single class. There was no other class. It was, I think TAM flew a lot of those single class for the shuttle, basically, between Sao Paulo to Rio. But I still had like food. I remember I had like a cheese sandwich, actually. See, I was not drunk, but I had a cheese sandwich. I think some Hershey chocolate and So fresh, I think was the name of that orange juice. Anyway, it was really in a box. That's what I remember. It was in a nice box, and it was really nice. And as I said, I was flying to Santo Dumont SDU, and I was on the wrong side of the aircraft, and I hated myself for it, and I hated it. And I've seen it from afar. The best views are on the left side of the aircraft. Trust me, guys. In Rio, it was a very short stay. It'll come into I'll have another 10 minutes of flights, and then it will be over, I think. It was a very short stay. I would only stay 24 hours. And as you understood from what I said at the top of the show, Rio for me was the place I wanted to see, but I had meetings and meetings and meetings. I even went to see the operations center of the city. So they had like this, where all the CCTVs or the cameras of the cities are. We were invited to actually see it. It was pretty impressive and pretty Orwellian as well. But it was cool. But I remember the evening I said, I don't want to sleep. I don't want to see. It's my first time in Rio, so I'm not going to go to bed, and I'm going to go stay up until the flight the next morning. That's it. I'm not sleeping. And I went. I remember it was 10 or 11 p.m. I went on the beach. I think it was Copacabana, but just take some sense. Okay, I've seen it. And then we went for some drinks, and I got my nickname in Brazil is Capinapi. So caipirinha, as you know what it is, guys. And caipirinha is because I was falling asleep all the time. So it was like 3 a.m. and I was like, no, I'm not going to sleep. And there was a caipirinha in front of me. And apparently, because of course, I would fall asleep for like 5-6 minutes in a row. And my friend Joanna, if you ever hear this, Joe, she came with that nickname, Caipi. So Paul is known as the guy who falls asleep in front of caipirinhas in Rio. But I promised myself that I would go back. But before that, another flight I took. Then I was flying to Chile, as I told you. The point was to go to Santiago. But of course, from Rio, there was no direct. So what we did, opening up other airports, we did this time Galeo, GIG, to GRU, so Guarulhos. And what is interesting is that they also call that the bridge. Have you ever done that one? This bridge from GIG to GRU and the opposite? Or only the small from SDU to Guarulhos?
No, I've only done the city to city. Yeah.
Yeah, because the one thing that is actually interesting, it was a 330, man.
Wow.
For that. Yes. It was TAM. It was a 330. It was a 232 economy. So it was really big, right? Really big. And what I also remember is that I think I was in Terminal 2, which was more recently opened. So Terminal 1 was the original one, opened in the 70s. Terminal 2 was more recently built to prepare for both the World Cup and the Olympics. And I remember there was no one. It felt really brand new. It was like Rio looks really cool, especially about the low ceilings I just had at both Sao Paulo airports. So I was like, this is a nice airport. And so 330 by TAM, really nice flight as well. And then I would fly LAN this time. So the other bit of LATAM, I flew LAN, Chile, from GRU to SCL, so Santiago de Chile, with a 76300.
Okay.
And I remember the seats. You said the seats earlier, the one that are a bit bigger with leather. I call them the barber seats.
Great way to put it.
We don't have those anymore. But I remember, you sit and you
just settle in.
Exactly. You need to install yourself in the seat. It's so nice, and the headrest is a bit big, and you can move it around. I mean, I know it was just an economy, guys. All these flights were an economy for me. I did only the long bit in business, but the rest were economy. It was really, really nice. And these seats. I remember that I had to fill that change, of course, just to show how old it is. In the aircraft, I had to fill a form to declare my phone to the Chilean authorities. So I remember writing down brand, Apple, make, iPhone. And I was like, okay, and then what? I just had to declare that I had a phone. But it was really fascinating and then sign, both print name and my signature. It was really, really fun. And that's just for the history books. The guys thought as a good idea. So we were invited as a part of an official delegation in Santiago de Chile. The president was called La Peña back in this day. And they thought it would be a good idea to put Paul on stage alongside him.
Nice.
Google his height, and then realize how unhappy he was, and I was next to him on stage. So there's pictures of me in the newspapers of me shaking his hand, and I'm towering him, and I feel like, oh, like, man, he looks really bad. Anyway, and that's it. Then the rest of the trip is nothing to do with Brazil. Only to say that because I only stayed for freaking 24 hours in Rio, I made it a point, I'm going to go back to Rio. And actually, I found a client in Rio just because I was forced. I was trying. And that's the reason I went to Rio so many times. So meaning I've been to GIG, I don't know how many times. So unlike you who's visited other places in Brazil, for me, Rio was a central point of my work. 2011, 2012, 2013, just lasting to 2014. So just before the World Cup, and then I stopped going. Nothing to do because of the World Cup. It was a date. And I remember, and you must have seen that as well. I've seen the city change over time, as in they were pacifying the favelas. There were, all these infrastructure projects that were going on. It was really actually quite fascinating to see the city, how it evolved. The pacifying of the favelas was, I mean, of course, it was deals with the local gangs and everything. There were still a lot of police with heavy guns and rifles and stuff, but it allowed you to go to these favelas, and I've been countless times having drinks in favelas. I always feel a bit uncomfortable about that because I hate doing, doing tourism of poverty. I hate doing that. However, the guys, my friends, because over time I made friends in Rio, they were a bit younger than me. They said, "Come on, Paul, the best DJs over there tonight. We have to go." So I ended up in middle of favelas with DJs. It was absolutely fantastic. Great. So I have a lovely memory because of these local friends bringing me out to all these places that I would never be able to find again if I were to try on my own. So that's why I have a fond memory of my time working in, and let's be clear, when I say working, I was always going for 1, 2, 3 weeks and leaving. I was not actually resident of Rio, but I love that place to death. And especially Leblon was my hangout. I would say to people, if you want to meet me a beer at 6 p.m., I'll be always at Leblon, the same bar. People would actually find me. And the other thing I still did, and this is why I kept actually being platinum on Air France KLM, on SkyTeam, is because I kept flying Air France. Even though I moved to London, I would still fly Air France because I had status, which I had none back in the day with Oneworld, with PA. And so I flew a lot of Air France, and of course I flew 777. Of course I flew 332, but the wine I was able to fly because I still flew them with 744. And I did a lot of 744 from Charles de Gaulle to Rio, or from Rio to Charles de Gaulle. And it was always amazing. So I was able to try many different seats on the business class. I never got upgraded, but I always tried the different seats. And it was absolutely, that adds to, for me, almost a nostalgic memory of Brazil, because it's one of the countries I could fly still with the 744. And since then, like you, there was 1 or 2 occasions where I was still able to, but it was just, luck.
Yeah. Well, it's funny you're mentioning a lot about, work. And another nostalgic memory that comes back, especially going out of this Congonhas to SDU run, and you use the word shuttle a lot. I strictly remember businessmen, full suit, just with a briefcase, nothing else, going for a day trip, because it's city to city. It's so easy, and you could tell they just woken up, they'd gotten ready, they come in like the big cologne and everything. And they're not interested in buying coffees or anything. They just want to get on the plane, fly, go to their meeting, which is 10 minutes away from SDU or vice versa, and hop back on and come back later. It was kind of a part of life. And I mean, I'm assuming it still exists. I mean, the routes still exist.
I say shuttle, I think they call it ponte, so bridge. So it's clearly, of course it exists. No matter what I said earlier, and here I'm not talking to you, I'm talking to our audience. No matter what I said earlier about the center of gravity having moved towards Sao Paulo, it's clearly Sao Paulo. Rio is still an important city. It's not only a destination for tourism. So it's still an important city. Globo, the the television network, which I think is still the biggest television network, is based in Rio de Janeiro because historically it was there. So I think it's still an important city. But as a tourist, here I'm not talking to Vinod, I'm talking to everyone. If you've never been to Brazil, of course Rio has to be on your list because it's quite something of a city.
Yeah.
I mean, Sao Paulo, I loved my time. I had a lot of fun. But Rio, it's postcard.
It's simply it. You're just walking into that postcard. No matter whether you've seen much of it or all of it, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's one of the most beautiful cities in the world. It's absolutely striking as a city. So you should absolutely make it a destination if you have not been. Have you flown, because you stopped in 2017, so you mentioned a lot Varig, but have you ever flown Azul or GOL or LATAM, Brazil?
I've not flown LATAM at all. I flew Azul. I flew that one time in Azul. And I did a GOL flight in one of the runs. Can't remember which one. It was a simple flight, but it was,
all of them are, I think LATAM is, so like we said, LAN, Chile, which I said I took, and TAM, they merged. They merged in 2012 because it was whilst I was working there, but the name LATAM only emerged in 2015 or 2016, I think something like that, which means I can say I've flown LATAM the merger, but I've never flown LATAM the name. It was always the
one
different. I don't know if now they kept both of the co-chair, the historical, because the co-chair of TAM was JJ. I always remember it always made me chuckle. Why JJ? So TAM, and the one from LAN was LA.
Yeah.
So I don't know if because they have a single name now, everything is LA, or if you fly in Brazil, it's JJ. But anyway, the point is, I've never flown, and I've never flown GOL, and I've never flown Azul. So
I've flown LAN in Peru. Yeah, it would have been LAN.
Yeah, because LAN had multiple.
And that was just before the full merger was complete, I believe. So, yeah, so they were already joined, but they were still identifying as their own at that point. So, yeah. There was one last thing to finish up the memory of. We're talking about Sao Paulo, and you mentioned Paulista Avenue, and this is one thing, and I think they're all gone. Is the era of airlines having offices, physical offices.
I know,
especially in like Asia.
Varig had them.
Yeah,
Varig,
there would have been in our France office, 100%.
Oh, 100%.
They were all, and it was. I remember Paulistano. I mean, it was in that 2003, 2004 era. They still had those offices here and there where you could go, you could get a schedule.
Physically, I know.
Sit in the seats, whatever it was. You go. I mean, my late father. I mean, it's decades past. We have to go reconfirm our ticket. What do you mean reconfirm?
My God, reconfirming. That's something when you think about it nowadays. But I remember as a kid, we needed to do that. Reconfirm our tickets. It's true. I think that some Middle Eastern airlines have offices, and I remember that Emirates had an office you could sit on a.
You could sit in. Yes, you could have. They have the models or like the mocks of the
mocks. I think
service,
so, right?
Yeah.
Maybe. I don't know. Maybe I. Yeah, I mean, this is another. I mean, I didn't want, but we had to because when I was thinking about how to do this episode about talking about flights that happened 15 years ago, I was like, I'm not going to do the full flight. There's no point of doing any reviews or whatever. But I knew that at the same time, it would be a little bit nostalgic talking about stuff that is, a bit. So I hope it was not too nostalgic for you guys, but I find it a fascinating country and a fascinating market as well for aviation. And you can find still, and that's why I was asking if you've flown Azul or GOL, because I will go back eventually and I will do the stuff that you've done and I haven't. So I've not been to Porto Alegre. I've not been to Iguazu. So maybe I'll do that. I'll do the more touristy bits. But again, if Rio alone is worth the trip, frankly, it's and that Santo Dumont, sit on the correct side of the aircraft. Don't do it like me, right? to not see anything. Anyway, I don't know if I have anything else to say about Brazil, to be honest. I had like a few notes writing here and there. And I think we've done like more than 2 hours. So I think we'll stop here. Did you have anything else you wanted to add my dear
I
friend?
think, it's just great memories, great trips, great friendships. Brazil has a special place in the heart of, over the many years. It's not one of those countries where you just visit once. I mean, geographically, that's it doesn't make sense, but also there's just so much it has to offer, so many different experiences. So, but you're right. If you're gonna go, Rio has to be on that list, right?
Yeah.
So, yeah.
And maybe if you have metal teeth, you'll be caught at security. And again, guys, if anyone has the lore as an encyclopedia and tells me if that scene was shot at Heathrow, which I doubt it was, or at GIG, where I think it was because they had access to the airport, it would be very interesting to me. Anyway, I'm going to run the music to end this episode. And where is it? So we didn't talk about current flights. Do you have anything? Where are you flying somewhere?
In August is the trip to.
Oh, don't say it. I know where it is. Don't say it. That would be a nice trip.
That's
any
a wide body domestic.
Yeah, exactly. Any of those?
I just completed one, so we'll
up?
have to talk about that in the next one.
We'll
some
talk
fireworks on that one. So
I'm going to Switzerland. Actually, you know what? The next game of Switzerland will be at 4 a.m. And as I said earlier, I'm not watching the foreign games. But that day, I need to be at the airport at 7 a.m. Which means that, I'll wake up at 4, watch a little bit with my coffee here, take the train, still watch because the train has enough Wi-Fi or 5G. And I'm wearing my Switzerland, little bracelet here, and I hope gives us luck because I don't have high hopes for Switzerland this tournament, no matter what. And I'm going to. Yes, I'm landing in Geneva, but I'm going to Bourgogne. If you like wine, you should try to follow me, but I'll be very discreet. I'm not going to be wearing any yellow this time on that.
Fantastic.
Thank you very much, and happy flying.
Take care.